So, hey guys, thank you for tuning in to Welcome Home Stay Well series, where we aim to invite individuals, groups, and organisations to start powerful conversations around topics that can help to support our community's well-being. Today, I'm joined by my guest, Samata Russell, to explore the question, how can we learn to love ourselves in every moment? So Samata is a mindfulness teacher, an emotional freedom technique or EFT practitioner, and a coach with 16 years experience in presence practices. She's super passionate, as I'm sure she'll tell you, about helping people develop a deeper connection to their souls and working around stored emotional stresses and traumas in order to become more fully and authentically ourselves. So Samata, thank you so much for joining us today. How are you doing?
Pleasure. Yeah, I'm doing good. Thanks, Dan. How are you doing?
I'm doing really well. All the better for having you on the podcast today. I've been really looking
Oh,
forward to this one,
charming.
I must admit, for a super long time. So I suppose I would love to get started just by hearing a little bit more about your own personal story and your kind of journey to how you got into the work that you do, and perhaps, sprinkled within inspirational stories of challenges that you've overcome kind of throughout your life and stuff that might leave a kind of a lasting impact on our listeners.
Gosh, okay, no pressure. Right, so my journey, for lack of a better word, probably started when I was a teenager. I'd moved around quite a lot as a kid and kind of seen lots of different cultures. And as a child, I think you're sort of always trying to figure out who you are and what is required of you from the world. And everywhere I went, it didn't agree. Like there were so many different conflicting um, viewpoints, and I didn't really know where to place myself, and I became a kind of chameleon. You learn the ropes of where you are in one setting and then go, oh, okay, that's me there. And by the time I got to about 18, I felt quite lost. I felt really lost about, I didn't really know who I was. And I was exhibiting quite a lot of physical symptoms as well. I had really bad acne. I had digestive issues. And I was addicted, basically. And I had this sense of knowing that I really needed to go to Exeter to go and do a drama degree. I was kind of looking around at different universities. And there was just this real sense of knowing, like, that's the one, that's this thing. And it was like such a surprising kind of the strength of it. I'd never experienced such a like an irrational but like powerful knowing before. Yeah, and I went there and it was the most amazing experience. It was 3 years of we did yoga, tai chi and martial arts to bring more awareness into the body, and it was supposed to be so that how could you become more present, spontaneous, alive, playful, creative as an actor. But for me it was really very, very healing, and I couldn't have imagined a better place to really try and figure out who I was. So I feel like I kind of entered the beginning of those 3 years with quite a lot of armor around myself, a lot of kind of ideas about who I felt I should be, or identities that I kind of gathered along the way that felt sort of safe, but maybe weren't really authentic. And then through those 3 years of like very consistent physical awareness practices, and also like the kind of the creativity of making theatre, of standing up and dancing and putting your own emotional process like out into the world. Yeah, I was just a completely different person. And I became really interested in like how we make decisions, because we so often just sort of are spoon-fed a direction about the way that we're supposed to go, and we sort of follow it, and at some point in our lives often people kind of go like, does this really feel like something that I want, or is it something that people want me to do? And there can be a schism, and for some of us it's a bigger schism than others. Some people find that it's actually working for them, going down the well-trodden path, but for a lot of people it kind of goes, you start to really question and want to delve a bit deeper. into who you are, into what this is, into like what your soul, because I feel like it's there is a sense of soul wanting to be expressed through our time here on earth. Yeah, so that's like the beginning of my process, but that was 16 years ago.
Yeah, no, and I'd love to hear a little bit more, but a few of the kind of points that I picked out from that in particular that really resonated with me is, this sense, as you said, coming to your later teenage years and not really having clear understanding or awareness of who you were. And I think, I've been reading a book recently. It's really about masculinity. It's by a guy called Dane Thomas. It's called The Integrated Man. And we talk about how, in the Western world, we really don't have these, rites of passage that initiate us into an understanding of, well, now I'm at this stage in my life, and this is who I am, and here I am moving through to the next stage. And it sounds like you kind of had that rite of passage or initiation kind of drawn to you by perhaps going to university and studying that course. But I think a lot of people, young or old, can probably resonate with that idea that we've just really kind of like ski bobbed down this slide, and we may or may not have gotten to this place that we want to be in our lives. And a lot of the work that I do with clients, and I'm sure you have as well, young or old, like I said, because I think this lack of connection to our innermost nature of who we are, I don't think it discriminates on age by any means. But no, it's really beautiful to hear that was the beginning of your journey, and how it led onto your path. I'd love to hear a little bit more, what happened for you then as you got older. How did you become a practitioner? How did you move into that kind of space that you're in now working?
I feel like I kind of I internally sort of rejected the status quo, I suppose. And one thing in particular throughout that course was we did a lot of work on moment by moment, like really, really just moment by moment, working with a sense of organic impulse that arises from a person rather than like a kind of formulaic head thing. So like from an acting perspective, it's sort of like, oh, I've got my line, I'm supposed to say that now, and then I walk over here, and it doesn't feel very authentic. And so we're kind of like, how do you really drop in deep into yourself and just listen and try and see if there's a sense of like an organic impulse that arises, and that's going to feel a lot more powerful for the audience than that kind of like that heady, and then I go do it now. So after 3 years of kind of training like this, it really for me, became a methodology for life creation. It was like, rather than thinking about what I should do, what if I just sat quietly and really felt into what felt right? What was and I kind of started to develop more of a sense of intuitive guidance, I suppose. It's like a muscle, if anything, the more you practice, the more you start to sense different like sometimes it felt like my gut, actually. It felt like really connecting in with a sense of gut impulse. But I really noticed that the more I took care of myself, like if I ate well and exercised well and spent out time in nature, then a sense of my own kind of intuitive alignment was much more available than if I was unable to look after myself. And I went away, so I did lots of, at this point I still had a lot of physical ailments that were troubling me, and I was really keen to get rid of those because they did feel quite not nice. So I kind of went on a bit of a healing journey. I left to India and I did yoga training, and I did weeks in Ayurveda training, and I did a juice fast, and I did a 10-day meditation retreat, and I wound up in the Himalayas teaching English to Tibetan refugees for a while. But through the process of that, my body healed, and I came to really have a much deeper understanding of lots of the different kind of health methodologies and how they a lot of it's about creating just a healthier flow of energy in the human being. And we stop the flow of energy often in ourselves when we turn away from our emotional experiences. So we kind of get angry, or we get frustrated, or we get whatever, and we, you just kind of push it down. And so many, that's quite a normal way of dealing with more challenging emotions. But the more we do that, the more it's like I say, it's like laying time bombs for later. It's like sort of going, oh, I don't want to do the dishes now. I'll just leave them and pretend they're not there, and then they'll go away. And they just don't. Our emotions need to be tended to. They're just energy. It's just energy in motion. So I through meditation and through learning EFT, I trained to be a practitioner in 2010. I started to really learn how to work with the emotional energies that were kind of coming through me, and so that was a huge part of healing the physical ailments. But then I started to really feel like healing, like true healing, isn't about the ridding of ailments. It's about becoming who we really are, like on the inside, and that's the essence of any spiritual journey. It's to allow the small self and that kind of like that sense of soul, higher self, to become more one, to diminish the sense of the smaller self. So I got to that, and then I came back and I became a mother, and so I was doing the mum thing for a while, and figuring out what to do. And I did some group therapy sessions at Headway for a while, and brought in EFT and mindfulness there, and I trained to be a mindfulness teacher. And then I just sort of felt like I wanted to go out on my own. So I've been doing mindfulness training, teaching mindfulness since 2015 now. Working with clients for a couple of years. So it's an exciting and interesting process.
Thank you so much, and there's so much I want to pluck at from that conversation.
I rambled on a bit.
No, it's amazing. It's amazing. And I think one of the most incredible things is you spoke about this heightening of your intuition, or this gut sense, or this trust our gut that we so often say to ourselves. And it's funny because in all of my work as a functional medicine practitioner, as a nutritionist, looking at lifestyle, physically, we're always looking at how food and our environment and our sleep and all of these different things, stress, for example, obviously emotions cause a lot of psychological stress and physical stress, but how they impact our gut, because we know that our gut is our second more intuitive brain, if you like. And it took me most of my life, until perhaps only quite recently, to really begin to feel into that sense of, like you said, that sense of I am behind the thinking mind, and being able to connect with that, gentle pull or push towards those things that are, very genuinely meant for myself and meant for me. And this is something that I find with a lot of my clients. I very often for a long time had a great awareness of my own, I say a great awareness, I thought I had a really great awareness of some of my own emotional scarring, or some of those kind of dishes that I left in the sink and was ignoring for a long time. And I worked very hard on cleaning all the other parts of the kitchen. My diet was great, my sleep hygiene was fantastic, did a lot of yoga, did a lot of forms of meditation for a long time, and really took a lot care on the external world, but wasn't willing to face the internal realities. And picking up again, as you said, as a child, I think so many of these things, as we know, are become programmed into us, and they play out in patterns and behaviors that come across our whole lives. And the net result is that I personally felt like I was very aware of the behaviors I was carrying out, whether it was patterns or self-sabotaging mechanisms around addictions, like you said, and various things like that. And I could see those very surface level behaviors, but I really wasn't able to gain a deeper awareness of particularly the inner child, or the childhood experience that had led me to hold those emotional wounds, or to have that stored energy in my body for such a long period of time. And as you said, we know very well now, there's so much research showing that trapped emotions within the body, lead to physical ailments. And traditional Chinese medicine, which I'm sure you're aware of, has been studying this for thousands and thousands of years. In the West, we are not so accepting of that. Although I think we're all aware now that is becoming more mainstream, if you like. Mindfulness in particular has been a very buzzword for a very long time now. So I think it's amazing that more people like yourself are coming forward and sharing our stories openly. I don't want to spend the whole time talking about my story, but I can honestly tell anybody listening now that my life did not change and transform until I dealt with the emotions that I had stored in my body. Through years and years of trying to lose weight, of trying to become a better version of myself, all with the best intentions. And I hit so many blocks. I took so many steps backwards every certain month, like clockwork. I just knew that there was this rhythmical pattern coming to my behaviors. And it wasn't until I cleared my shit, basically, and those emotions that were stored, that I've really been able to step more into my own soul, or inner self journey, if you like. And I can just attest to anybody watching, that has been the most beautiful thing. In fact, it makes me feel really emotional that that has led to me living such a more passionate, fulfilling, and like loving and joyful life. Now we had a little bit of a chat before, and one of the things that's quite obvious, I think, in our society in particular, is that people are so critical of themselves. And I see this in my friends, I see this in my family, I saw this in myself. I certainly can still feel the remnants of that inner critic in myself. And I'm really interested to ask you, why do you think people hold such a strong criticism for themselves that they probably wouldn't, even cast that judgment on other people, for example?
Well, I kind of have noticed that it does seem to be an affliction of the Western world more so than more developing nations. Like when the Dalai Lama was asked, so what about all of this self-hatred, all of this self-criticism? He was like, what? No, there's like no translation in Tibetan. He just couldn't comprehend what people were talking about. So I mean, I think it is in part due to a sort of more patriarchal worldview over the last, I don't know, however many 100 years, where anything that is considered feminine, and I'm really, I just really want to reiterate that I'm really talking about archetypal energies here. I'm not talking about men and women. Men and women can both hold everything, but the archetypal energy of femininity versus the archetypal energy of masculinity. So masculinity is rational, it's structured, it's orderly. We're totally down with that. We love that, and there's amazing gifts there. But there is this kind of more like emotional, intuitive piece that has historically been going back a few hundred years, women would have been burned at the stake for really kind of being in touch with themselves, or having an intuition, stuff like that. And emotions has been seen as weak in both genders, I think. And we're just sort of taught to push them away. But when we reject a part of ourselves, there creates this massive internal dissonance. And we actually push a huge aspect of our beings into the shadow, where they have actually a lot more energy over our lives than if we were to turn towards them and face them and look at them. And I really relate to what you were saying before as well about the kind of the well-being process. We often, I was the same, I did all sorts of crazy diets and really looked after my environment and my lifestyle, but it got to the point where I started to feel like it was a kind of very healthy prison, where I kind of I was very self-flagellating, you didn't do that, and there has to come a time where we start to go, okay, this is the way I am, and come to the self-improvement. I mean, I don't even really like the self-improvement. I don't call it self-improvement. I call it a pathway of self-acceptance, where true fulfillment, true connection, truly feeling alive comes from just being you. And I know a lot of people who have become very, very wealthy and become very, very successful, and then got to the point and gone, there's something missing, you know, and that something is that deeper connection with yourself, with your soul. Yeah, and I think advertising is quite bad as well. There's like, I think we all have this idea of who we think we should be, and that social media really exacerbates it, and it's just not real. There is nobody in the world who is doing you better than you can do you. It's this kind of phantom of perfection that hovers around, and everybody's comparing themselves to it, and there's nobody, it's not a person on the earth that actually is living that. It's just this kind of hovering sense of should. And I think we need to and this is one of the things that meditation is really good for, because you learn to over time let go of the shoulds and of the ideas and the concepts about who you think you should be, and come to just drop into who you actually are in that moment, and come to just be with, offer yourself unconditional presence, which is like unconditional love of, okay, right now I'm feeling sad, and I'm going to let myself feel this sad, and it won't last forever, and it's not going to kill me, it doesn't make me weak, it's just an emotion, it will pass through, it has some kind of wisdom to share with me. If I really feel it, it will move through and I will feel better. Or just developing that much deeper respect and relationship with self.
Yeah, you put it so beautifully. So much to take away from everything you said, and just looking at it again through kind of my lens as a nutritionist, and on my own personal health journey. There's a quote that says you can eat as many kale smoothies as you want, but if you don't sort out the relationship that you have with yourself in here, then if we're constantly at war with ourselves, as you said, through our patterns of thought of should, could, should have done this, could have done that, consistently berating ourselves and not showing ourselves the love and the compassion that not only do we deserve, but that ultimately we want to give everyone else, then even on a physiological level, we are telling our nervous system, we're telling our body that there is a threat, that someone's assaulting us, we're doing something wrong. And on a level of physical healing, when it comes to our nervous system and our autonomic nervous system, we have our fight or flight and our parasympathetic, very masculine kind of energy. And then we have our parasympathetic, or our relaxation response, our rest and digest, and it's very feminine kind of yin, as opposed to the masculine yang energy. And the biggest problem that I see, especially in people who are on a healing journey, especially when it comes to conditions such as autoimmune conditions and things like that, is that people are at war with their own nervous system. And when you're constantly at war with your own nervous system, it cannot heal, because we know that if you spend your time in this fight or flight reaction, no matter how many nutrients you're giving your body, no matter how much sleep you're getting, how much exercise you're doing, in fact, those things may be contributing or adding to the overactivation of that stress response. And not only does that stress response put the hairs up on the back of our necks and make our muscles tense and cause us to internally criticize and externally judge, but at the same time, on a cellular level, we're telling our body that there is a threat to our survival. In doing so, we can't heal. It's not possible to heal. I experienced it myself. I used to have chronic eczema over my body. As I said, I might have shared on the podcast before, I used to suffer a lot of binge eating disorder and the kind of orthorexia, where I was very, very, very clinically critical of the food choices and the lifestyle choices that I made to the point of, suffering a lot with anxiety and I needed depression around my choices and the way I treated myself. And none of my health conditions or problems were solved until I learned, as you so beautifully put it, to fully love myself or fully accept myself and the experiences that I had. And what I'm really interested to talk to you about next is there's a lot of positive attitude in the world right now around these concepts. And if somebody were to scroll through Instagram over and over and over again, they would see lots of positive quotes, just be happy, tell yourself lovely things, use affirmations. For me personally, it wasn't until I learned tools and techniques from other people, like yourself, and I'll talk about that, who can mentor me and show me the pathway through my inner world. Because when we are spending so much time on Instagram and we're learning, or seeing free content, free videos, just do this, just write this gratitude journal and you'll feel tons better. All of these things are fantastic tools. But, my next question to you is, what can we do to help release or deal with or accept these difficult emotions as they arise? Because they still arise for me now. I'm sure, they still arise for you now. But the question is, do we acknowledge them and face them and, work with our body, our physical body, and our energetic body to allow those energy and motion to pass through? Or do we, begin to fill up the volcano again, or, fill up the sink again until it's overflowing? So, I would love to hear a bit about the work that you do with your clients, the kind of services you offer them, and what kind of ways they can use that information to basically deal with those emotions.
Yeah. Cool. Well, it's interesting what you're saying about the nervous system, because I really feel like that is a key component of what I am teaching, which is to kind of daily manage ourselves, basically, because we store up so much stress, and I don't know what the statistics are, but there's a massive amount of being in that sympathetic nervous system.
90% of all trips to the doctor's office have now been shown in Western research to either be caused by or mediated by our inability to respond to stress effectively.
Yeah. So mindfulness meditation is just continually coming back again and again and again into the body, and tuning in and learning to meet what's there. And this can be quite challenging for people if you are in that kind of stressed out state. So it does take working with a practitioner, I think, and repetition over time to really start to reap the benefits of it. And EFT is amazing as a methodology and it's quite easy to learn just to do on yourself at home. Because I really feel like I personally don't want to be dependent on going to a body worker or a massage therapist or whatever, anybody. That they're not going to be there at 2 o'clock in the morning when you can't sleep and your mind's racing 10 to the dozen. You really want to have some tools in your own toolkit to be able to work with yourself, really. That self-mastery, and that is true power and true trust that you've got this, you can do this life thing, if you know that you can work with your own emotional challenges as they arise. So meditation and EFT, but you have to, I think I've really come to realize, working with clients, have a degree of a sense of safety for yourself. So sometimes safety can actually just mean having relationships with people who actually see you and want the best for you on some level. That for me, that has been a huge part of my process, is just meeting other people who I can't see it, but who see me and who accept me completely just for the way that I am. And essentially, I feel like that is what a practitioner does, and it's also what you're kind of doing for yourself as you meditate. You're repeatedly coming back to yourself, repeatedly coming back, and repeatedly giving yourself and your nervous system the message: it's okay. I'm here. I'm listening. I'm with you. And people, when you immediately first start to meditate, it's really common to have some experiences of real silence, real peace and spaciousness, and also moments where your mind is just really agitated and your body feels really. And I think that there is this slight problem in the way that we perceive of meditation, that like every meditation should be the blissful, really peaceful kind, and that's just not what it's about. What it's really about is truth. It's can you come to see the truth of what's happening in each moment? Can you come and sit with yourself, even when it's uncomfortable, and but dropping out of your head of like the thoughts about the way that you should be, and dropping down into a felt sense of the body, like, because anger sounds like, he shouldn't have done that to me, that was just awful, I'm never going to be like that, on repeat. But it feels like heat and clenching. It feels there's a physical sensation that accompanies any emotion, and it's the physical sensation that is actually there and tangible that we can start to work with. And once we've connected with that, we can start to tap with it as well. So that's kind of what I do with clients, is helping them to develop a much greater awareness of what's going on internally. Excuse me. And giving them tools and techniques. And then also there are some patterns that come from past experiences, so we can go back through another technique that I do called matrix re-imprinting, and really get quite deep with that. But you should do that with a practitioner, really. You wouldn't say to do that for yourself.
No, that's amazing. Thank you so much for explaining. I'll give a full disclosure. I have done your 8-week mindfulness course. That absolutely, without a doubt, was one of the most transformative programs or courses that I've ever taken part in my life. It really did provide me with a much greater awareness of techniques and experiences that I, might have expected or not have expected in meditation than any amount of, Calm apps or Headspace or anything like that. So that for me, hats off to you. That was one of the most amazing experiences ever. And I've also done a little bit of the matrix re-imprinting or the emotional freedom technique with you. And these are two things actually that I've been fairly interested in, becoming more competent in myself. Not just because I think they're fabulous tools for me, but to be able to use them with friends, family members, children in particular. And how to have those, bodywork skills, available and on hand to help people deal with these difficult emotions when they arise, I think is such an incredible thing. And I really like how you pointed out, and I can't stress this enough, that you can't be what you can't see. And so if you can't work with a practitioner, and there are some fabulously cheap options online to, learn these sorts of skills. But if you can't learn them from someone who's been there before, and you're relying on trying to teach yourself, then you miss out on so much. You miss out on the, the mentorship and the wisdom and the experience of that person who has already walked that path. So many of the
there's an actual transmission that happens as well, like that I don't think is talked about enough actually, because we are so heady. We kind of go, oh, I can be in my head and I can learn from my head, because when we're looking at stuff online, it arrives in at your head. But a meditation isn't a heady thing, it's an awareness thing, and an awareness is a full-bodied experience. And so when you're in a room with somebody who is dropping into their body in a way that is different than your experience, which might be more cerebral, that is transmitted on a level that is received by your body. And I really learned that when I was at uni doing the drama, because that's what we were trying to do. We were trying to use our whole bodies to emote something that the audience could really feel. And so when I'm teaching meditation, I actually drop into a deep place of meditation in order to guide them, so that I'm kind of working with the energies in the room that I can feel that's going on. And so I'll say I hope, I try, I feel like good feedback about this, but like the right words that will help to shift the energy. Like I often just get this sense from people trying really hard, like people are really I'm going to do this, and there's a real sense of striving to be somewhere other than the place in which they find themselves. And so I'd kind of say something about that, so you can just let go of that. You don't have to be anywhere else, you don't have to be anybody different. You just have to be here inside yourself, just right now, and just coming to, yeah, to sense yourself as you are.
No, I completely agree. And, just a few last words, because we'll wrap it up in a second, but my experience was very much that. It was very much a masculine yin energy of, I've got to do this meditation, I've got to learn this, I want to learn this. And that's a very admirable and honest thing, that, I want to improve myself. But little did I realize that actually, it was almost counterintuitive or paradoxical, that I was trying so hard to relax. Particularly when it comes to sleep as well. I work with a lot of clients, and I have the Sleep Better, Live Better program. And so many people try to sleep. And when really a lot of it is about letting go. So Samata, I'd love to do a shout out to let people know where they can find you and find your work. So do you have some social media handles or a website that people can
yeah,
for people to find that afterwards?
Cool. My website is samatarussell.com, and then Facebook, Samata Mindfulness. Yeah, so yeah, love to see you there.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much for coming on, and I look forward to everyone benefiting from this.
Amazing. Thanks, Dan. Yeah, take care.
And as always, guys, you can keep up to date with Welcome Home and everything that we're doing through our social media channels. So you'll find us at Welcome Home Guernsey, and our website, which is welcomehome.org.gg. If you enjoyed this episode, guys, please give it a share it with your friends, tell your loved ones about it. It really helps us to get the message of these podcasts and the Stay Well series out there into the community, so that we can inspire more people with more conversations that can hopefully support their positive well-being. So thanks very much, guys, for tuning in, and I'll see you in the next episode.